Hey YouTube, I'm bringing you guys today what I hope is a really interesting video. Today, we'll be going over the arrest affidavits for the 4 people arrested in the recent disappearance and murders of Jilian Kelly and Veronica Butler. These 4 have been linked to a reportedly anti-government group called God's Misfits. I want to take you guys quickly through the arrest affidavits and give you my input on them, and hopefully, we'll have some answers to the questions many of us have had for weeks now. For those who don't know, my name is Blue, and I'm a Florida police officer with 10 years of experience. These arrest affidavits are now publicly available as public record, but any of my input is based on my own experience in the field, and not the opinions of any department or organization. We post true crime here weekly, so if that's your kind of thing, consider subscribing. And with all that said, let's get into today's video. So let's start with a very brief background of this case. On Saturday, March 30th of this year, Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelly were on their way to attend a court-ordered supervised visitation of Veronica's children. Jilian, a pastor's wife, was an acquaintance who agreed to supervise these visits. Veronica's children were at this time living with their paternal grandmother, Tiffany Adams, which was also court-ordered. Veronica's ex and the father of the children, Wrangler Rickman, was recently arrested on a felony weapons possession charge and is presumed to have been at a court-ordered rehab facility during her disappearance. On that fateful Saturday, neither Veronica nor Jilian would make it to the children. After several hours, the alarm was raised and their disappearance was reported to police. The same day, their car was found abandoned on the side of the road in a desolate area. Police were initially very tight-lipped about what they found, and while rumors began to spread like wildfire, they announced that they suspected foul play, and called for the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation to assist, which, as I said in an earlier video, was a great idea. If any police department feels like they need help in an investigation, it's a very wise choice to make the call for help. After nearly 2 weeks of silence, on April 13th, police announced the arrest of 4 individuals. 54-year-old Tiffany Adams, 43-year-old Tad Colum, 50-year-old Cole Twombly, and 44-year-old Cora Twombly. For 2 weeks, I saw news report after news report talking about how the police were dropping the ball, how they were dragging their feet, and that they had no idea how to conduct a proper investigation. Unfortunately, this is nothing new. We often have to deal with a very uninformed public weighing in on an investigation that they have very minimal information on. Yet once police announced the arrest, we found out that literally dozens and dozens of officers had been at work nearly around the clock until this case was solved. This was just like the criticism that investigators faced in the killings in Idaho, and yet after the silence during the investigation, we saw that the same kind of exhaustive work by dozens had gone into the case. Let's credit these agencies for their dedicated and exceptional work to solve the murder of these 2 women. One day after the arrest, authorities would announce that 2 bodies had been recovered, which were believed to be Jilian and Veronica. So with that initial recap, let's get into what you guys came for, the arrest affidavits. Now these affidavits should read like a story, talking about how the investigator came to be involved in the case, what the initial circumstances were, and what facts were discovered along the way that led to the probable cause for the charges. After having read them, in my opinion, these arrest affidavits are exceptionally well written and organized, keeping the essential details without having to get too specific. Let's start reading. We'll skip the first part, which is just an introduction explaining the officer's length of time in law enforcement, and more relevantly, his length of time as an investigator. The next part ahead is just a summarization of facts and initial timeline, including what exactly was found at the crime scene. I'll read this out loud for those of you who are just listening along. On Saturday, March 30th, 2024, the Texas County Sheriff's Office requested the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation investigative services with the suspicious disappearance of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelly from rural Texas County after their vehicle was found abandoned near Highway 95 and Road L, south of Elkhart, Kansas. Butler and Kelly were traveling to Oklahoma from Hugoton, Kansas. Interviews were conducted related to their disappearance, and it was discovered that Butler was in a problematic custody battle with Tiffany Adams for the custody of Butler's 2 children. The father of those 2 children was Wrangler Rickman, Adams' son. Butler's visitation with her children was court-ordered to be supervised every Saturday. Adams had a particular person she preferred to supervise those visitations, and that was Cheryl Brune. The court ordered Adams to pay for Brune to supervise visits if that was who she wanted to be present. Otherwise, Butler was to choose and pay for the person to supervise. Adams said Brune was unavailable to supervise a visitation on March 30th of 2024, so Butler was required to arrange a supervision with one of her 3 approved individuals. Butler then contacted Kelly of Hugoton, Kansas, and planned to have her supervise the visit. Butler told family members she was going to pick up her children from Adams at 10 a.m. at Four Corners, which is an intersection of Highway 95 and US 64 West, a location in Texas County, Oklahoma. Butler and Kelly left Hugoton, Kansas, and traveled to Highway 95 and Road L, about 5 miles north of Four Corners. Butler and Kelly arrived at that location at approximately 9:40 that morning. Butler planned to bring her daughter to a birthday party, but after they did not arrive, the family began looking for her. Melissa and Joey Padilla, who were Butler's family members, located Butler's abandoned vehicle just west of the intersection of Highway 95 and Road L. They then contacted law enforcement at 12:09 hours. An examination of the vehicle and area surrounding the vehicle found evidence of a severe injury. Blood was found on the roadway and the edge of the roadway. Butler's glasses were also found in the roadway south of the vehicle, near a broken hammer. A pistol magazine was found inside Kelly's purse at the scene, but no pistol was found. And that brings us up to where police began their investigation. Next, we'll be getting into the interview that took place with Adams. Adams claims that on Friday night, which was March 29th of 2024, Rickman and Butler's children stayed the night with Barrett and Lacey Cook. Adams said that she planned to pick them up that morning before the visitation at 10 a.m. Adams said she called Butler at 9 a.m. to confirm the meeting, but claims that Butler told Adams something came up and she was not going to make it. Now, Butler's phone records did confirm that this call occurred. However, at the time of the call, Butler was in Hugoton, Kansas, in the process of picking Kelly up to go meet Adams. Adams stated she was home at the time that Butler and Kelly went missing. She then claimed she picked up the children before 12 p.m. that day. Now, the OSBI interviewed Brune and said she was available to supervise the visit that day, but that Adams told her to take a couple weeks off from visitation, so Adams could question the children related to how Butler's approved visitation supervisors were. Butler and Kelly's phone records indicated their devices were actively sending signals to their carriers until approximately 9:42 a.m., after which the devices were no longer seen by the networks and totally stopped transmitting. Neither phone was found at the scene or within the vehicle, and they're currently missing. Adams was the last known person to communicate with Butler and scheduled to meet with Butler and Kelly for visitation at 10 a.m. on the 30th. So let's talk about this. When police interview you about a missing persons case, or really any type of criminal case, one of the first things we do is to try to establish whether or not you have an alibi. This is because as more information becomes available during the course of the investigation, we can weigh your alibi against the evidence and determine its truthfulness. This is done not with malice or with the intent to frame anyone, but rather as a truth-finding effort. In this case, let's look at Adams' alibi. She claims that she called Veronica at 9 a.m. that morning to confirm the meeting, but that Veronica had canceled and said something had come up. Now, some might think this is a good alibi, because as we see, investigators were able to confirm that call with phone records. However, location records from that same phone confirm that Veronica was picking up Jilian at that time, which is a problem for Adams' alibi. And yet another contradiction surfaces when police interview Brune, a person who Adams preferred to supervise these visits. Now, according to Adams, Brune was unavailable to supervise on the 30th. However, Brune tells it much differently. She claims that Adams specifically told her to not supervise these visits for the next few weeks, because Adams wanted to question the kids about who Butler was bringing to supervise. This is a major problem for her alibi. It immediately puts Adams on the defense and places the burden on her to explain away this clear contradiction. On a darker note, it also seems like she did this because she did not want Brune to be involved in the murder, which means that she and the others knew and were okay with murdering this other person, the person that Veronica brought to the visitation. Just 40 minutes after Veronica spoke with Adams, at 9:42 a.m., both Veronica and Jillian's phones would stop transmitting. So far, neither phone has been recovered. Now, let's get back to the affidavit. Through the child custody case, recordings were obtained where Rickman discussed death threats by Adams and Adams' boyfriend, Tad Colum. The custody battle began in February of 2019, with many hearings and court appearances. On March 18th, 2024, and March 20th, 2024, 5 years later, motions were filed requesting extended visitation for Butler. A hearing was scheduled to occur on April 17th of this year. Butler's attorney informed OSBI that Butler was likely to receive unsupervised visitation with her children at that hearing. At times, Adam refused to let Rickman even have his children, even though Rickman had legal custody of them. Law enforcement previously responded to a call for service where Adams refused to give Rickman his children. Reportedly, the officer told Rickman he actually believed the children were better off in Adams' care. Now let's talk about that. It says that police responded during one of these incidents and allegedly told Rickman his children were better off with his mother. Considering the criminal allegations Rickman faced just before Veronica's disappearance, they may have been right. But I just want to clarify here. We, the police, do not make the decision on where the children go, at least in Florida. When we go to a call for a custody dispute, especially between a father and a mother who have a court agreement, we cannot physically remove the children from one party and give them to another, even if the child sharing agreement shows that on that day the mother or father is supposed to have them. We can only physically remove children under very extreme and very specific circumstances, such as if the child is in immediate danger or the sole parent gets arrested. Even with a signed order from a judge to remove the children, commonly referred to as a break order, they are enforced by the sheriff, who has the ultimate authority to serve them. So let's get on to the next part of the affidavit. Based on these statements here, I would be surprised if Rickman himself wasn't facing charges in the coming days. Rickman's grandmother, Debbie Knox Davis, reported that in mid to late February of 2024, Rickman told her that they did not have to worry about the custody battle much longer because Adams had it under control, that Adams knew the path the judge walked to work, and stated, "We will take out Veronica at drop-off." Rickman was confirmed to be in a rehabilitation facility in Oklahoma City at the time of the disappearance. The children remain in the custody of Adams. Rickman, of course, denied having that conversation with Knox. On April 1st, 2024, the OSBI obtained a search warrant for Adams' cell phone, and they performed an extraction on her device. Information gained from the device included web searches for taser pain level, gun shops, prepaid cellular phones, and how to get somebody out of their house. Just so you guys know, and we've said this before, such as in the Madeline Soto case, what you search on your phone will likely never go away. We will always be able to find those searches, those pictures, and those videos, and those text messages that you delete. Now, these searches are also extremely troubling, as I think it makes all of us reasonably believe that Veronica and Jilian probably suffered greatly before their death. Let's get back into the next part of the affidavit. On April 3rd, 2024, the OSBI interviewed CW, age 16 years. As a juvenile, her information will be protected, and she will be referred to from here on only by her initials. CW is the daughter of Cora Twombly and Colby White. Cora is married to Cole Twombly. CW stated that she had overheard group conversations related to Butler not protecting her children from her brother, all in reference to a sexual abuse allegation. This was likely the reason for those supervised visits. CW advised that she was told by Cora that Adams, Colum, Cora, Cole, and another person named Paul were involved in the deaths of Butler and Kelly. She states that Adams had provided burner phones to use so that they could communicate without using their personal devices. CW described Cora, Cole, Adams, Callum, and Paul as being part of an anti-government group that had a religious affiliation. Through OSBI investigation, it was learned that they call their group God's Misfits. Regular meetings are held weekly at the Twombly's or the home of Barrett and Lacey Cook. CW was told on March 29, 2024, that Cora and Cole would not be home in the morning when she woke up, and they were going on a mission. Cora and Cole were indeed not home, but they would eventually come home around 12 p.m. CW knew that Cole and Cora took a blue and gray Chevrolet pickup, owned by them, and a blue flatbed pickup, owned by Clint Twombly, when they left and returned in the same vehicles. CW was told to clean the interior of the Chevy pickup. CW asked Cora what had happened and was again told things did not go as planned, but that they would not have to worry about her again, her referring to Butler. CW was told that Cora and Cole blocked the road to stop Butler and Kelly and divert them to where Adams, Colum, and Paul were. CW actually asked about Kelly and asked why she had to die, and she was told by Cora that she wasn't innocent either, as she had supported Butler. CW asked Cora if their bodies were put into a well, and Cora replied something like that. CW also disclosed that other attempts to kill Butler occurred during February of 2024, near Hugoton, Kansas, in which Adams, Colum, Cole, Cora, and Paul went to Hugoton, but Butler did not leave her residence. This is consistent with that web search discovered on Adams' phone about how to get someone out of their house. According to Cora, the plan was to throw an anvil through Butler's windshield while driving, making it look like an accident, because anvils apparently regularly fall off of work vehicles. So you guys can see the level of genius we're working with here. While in Texas, interviewing CW and her brother, Cora and Cole would arrive and try to get access to CW and her brother. Cora was verbally aggressive and was very upset with the affiant, which is the person writing this arrest affidavit, that she was not granted access to CW and her brother. Cole exited the vehicle armed with a handgun and a holster in his belt, which was likely an obvious attempt to intimidate investigators. Now here's the part so many people wanted to know, the how of the case. How did they do it? Let's read, as I really want to credit the investigators on a job well done, and show you all exactly how they made these arrests happen. This is a very good example of good police legwork. The OSBI investigation showed that Adams purchased 3 prepaid cell phones from Walmart in Oklahoma on February 13th of 2024. The phones were identified by their phone numbers, of which the last 4 have been redacted for this investigation. One of them was 620-417, and the other 2 were 806-390, presumably with the last 4 digits being different. Search warrants for the information related to the location services and phone usage were completed for each device. It was learned that all 3 phones were at the area where Butler's car was located, and the last known location of Butler and Kelly at the time of their disappearance. All 3 phones were powered on and accessed the cellular network for the first time at or near Callum's residence at different times, prior to March 30th of this year. On March 30th of this year, both phone numbers starting with 806 and 390, before Butler and Kelly's disappearance, were at the Twombly's residence, prior to going to or near Colum's residence. Butler and Kelly's disappearance at 10:05 and 10:16 a.m. were in or at the area near Colum's residence, with those phone numbers. After Butler and Kelly's disappearance on March 30th of 2024, between 10:16 and 10:35, it was determined that phone numbers 620-417 and 806-390 were at a property owned by Jamie Beasley, below a dam, in the pasture, where fresh dirt work was located by your affiant. Again, the person writing the arrest affidavit. Concrete had been moved from a location near the Beasley's residence, approximately 150 to 200 yards below the dam, where it was discovered that a hole had been dug and filled back in, and then covered with hay. The location where Butler and Kelly disappeared from, and where Butler's vehicle was located, is approximately 8.5 miles away from the location below the dam on Beasley's property. The location where Butler and Kelly disappeared from, and where Butler's vehicle was located, is approximately 8.5 miles away from the location below the dam on the Beasley's property. Giving drive time from the location of where Butler's vehicle was located to the Beasley's property was well within 34 minutes between the time of Butler and Kelly's phones stopping transmission and the prepaid phone numbers arriving at the dam on Beasley's property. All prepaid phones stopped transmitting on the morning of March 30th, 2024, at locations near Twombly's residence and the Beasley property. Now that is some pretty damning evidence to fight against. Ultimately, the investigator ends this affidavit by asking the judge to order an arrest warrant for the following charges: 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of conspiracy. Looking at the most serious charge here, the murder charges, here's what they entail per statute and what the prosecutors are going to have to prove. First-degree murder in Oklahoma is defined as an act of homicide that occurs under one of the following circumstances: a person unlawfully and with malice aforethought causes the death of another human being. Malice in the statute is defined as a deliberate intention unlawfully to take away the life of a human being. Now, keep in mind, there were 4 people arrested. What I just read to you guys was the arrest affidavit for Adams. All of them are identical, except for Adams' boyfriend's, Tad Colum's. His affidavit ends a bit differently, and details just how he was involved before and after the fact. I'll read it for you all here. Going back to the property owner, Beasley, he advised that the recent dirt work done to his property was done with a skid steer by Colum on March 29th, and was possibly finished on March 30th in the morning hours. Beasley knew that Colum left his skid steer on his property the night of March 29th, and when he awoke on March 30th at approximately 12 p.m., the skid steer was gone. Colum rents the pasture property owned by Beasley for cattle grazing and has access to it at any time. That's very important. On March 28th or 29th, Colum asked Beasley if he could cut down a tree, remove a stump, bury some concrete, and do some other dirt work where the concrete pile was below the dam. Adams was actually with Colum at this time on his property when that conversation was had. In a contact with Colum, the affiant here actually learns that Adams and Colum are in a dating relationship, or at least refer to each other as significant others. Beasley agreed to allow Colum to do this work. Colum actually brought up the idea of doing the work to Beasley, another very important distinction. On Sunday, March 31st, in the morning hours, Colum was at the Beasley house and told Beasley that people were looking at him for the disappearance of Butler and Kelly. Colum actually told Beasley that he didn't want the police or people to cause problems for Beasley and said that all the skid steer tracks on his property, without a skid steer being around, looked bad. Beasley told him that if anybody asked, he would tell them that Colum had just recently done some work for him. As you can all see, this evidence is damning and shows plenty of forethought of the crime and work afterwards to cover it up. Like I stated above, as for the other 2 defendants, Cole and Cora, their affidavits are identical to Adams, as their involvement was outlined perfectly in that one. But that does it for these affidavits, guys. In my opinion, they are very well done, and these investigators should be proud of all the work they put in that resulted in not just 1, but 4, at least for now, arrests. The only thing left to see now, I think, are the autopsy results, which I imagine will come out at trial. I would also be surprised if one of these 4 doesn't flip and tell on the others in a bid to avoid the death sentence, something each of them are likely to face. But what do you guys think about this case? Do you think, like the statement in the affidavit claims, that Rickman was involved in planning this, and that he may face charges? And what do you all think could have been done to prevent these murders? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And additionally, if you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing. If you have any ideas or suggestions, leave them in the comments for me. And as always, stay safe and stay tuned.